Now, Alex Eala, she was given a special security. Thousands of Filipinos who tried to get a glimpse of the star on court.
Start in Manila, 11 in the morning local time, traffic stitched along EDSA, a sports bar in Quezon City already half full, because the match they're waiting for begins at 6 in the evening their time, and nobody is going to miss it. Move west. Mallorca, where the academy that shaped her is quiet because she isn't there. She's been gone for weeks chasing a grass season nobody saw coming. Move north, London, southwest, postcode 19, the All England Club, where on Tuesday, the 30th of June, 2026, a 21-year-old named Alex Eala will walk onto court 12 as the number 29 seed at Wimbledon. And here is the number that should stop you. Before her, the highest-ranked Filipina in the history of professional tennis was Maricruz Gents, who reached world number 284 in 1999. Eala enters Wimbledon at number 30, 254 ranking spots, one generation. That is the gap a single player has closed for an entire country. And on Tuesday afternoon, that gap walks out onto grass. To understand why Tuesday matters, rewind 8 days. Bad Homburg, Germany, a grass court tune-up event that most casual fans skip past. Eala wasn't there alone in the singles draw. She was on a doubles court partnering Venus Williams, the 5-time Wimbledon singles champion.
Venus Williams, really like the first person in WTA that was so experienced.
The woman whose name is carved into the building Eala is about to walk into. Venus asked about her partner afterward, called Eala very competitive on the court, and said she hoped they'd play together again.
She's great. She's very competitive on the court. Just need a little more time together.
Per the Los Angeles Times feature, published the 29th of June. That detail has been buried under bigger headlines this week, but it shouldn't be. Tennis royalty doesn't share a doubles court with someone it considers a tourist. The Bad Homburg week is the quiet anointment that makes Tuesday's walkout feel less like an arrival and more like a confirmation of something that's already happened. Now, the honest tension, because the easy version of this story would frame Eala against her first-round opponent, Renata Zarazua of Mexico, world number 75, a 28-year-old veteran from Mexico City who has beaten top 30 players before and who fights for every rally she's in. That framing would be lazy and unfair. Zarazua isn't the obstacle. The obstacle is the weight. A country of roughly 113 million people, almost none of whom grew up around professional tennis, is watching one player carry a sport into a stadium where no Filipino of any gender has ever been seated before. That's the pressure, and it's a pressure Eala has had only weeks to learn to manage at this scale, because her grass court resume barely existed 3 months ago. She is, by any honest reading, still relatively new to this surface at this level. This is only her second Wimbledon main draw. The seeding reflects her ranking. It does not reflect a long Wimbledon track record because she doesn't have one yet. So the tension is real, and it sits inside her, not across the net. Eala herself has named it. Speaking to the Los Angeles Times last week, she said the tour is a place where pressure is thriving, and that with the attention now following her, some would argue there's added pressure. But in her words, it only holds the power that you give it. That sentence is the entire scaffolding of Tuesday afternoon. A 21-year-old 3 weeks into her first grass title has decided that the weight of 113 million people is something she gets to define the size of. We'll see on court 12 whether the decision holds. The evidence that she belongs at the seeding line begins with the seeding itself. Number 29, Paralympics.com and ESPN's player records, confirmed by the WTA's rankings update of the 22nd of June, Eala is the first Filipino player, male or female, ever seeded at a Grand Slam singles event. Not first this decade, first, full stop. The ceiling she just shattered didn't have a crack in it, it was solid. And the ranking that earned her that seed didn't come from junior reputation or potential talk. It came from a surface that barely existed in her professional game 90 days ago. On the 7th of June in Birmingham, Eala won the Lexus Birmingham Open, a WTA 125 event on grass. The final went the distance, 5-7, 6-3, 7-5 over Nikola Bartunkova, and it was her first grass court title and the second WTA 125 trophy of her career, per the LTA, ESPN, and the Inquirer. The surface was new. The result already wasn't. And the moment Birmingham ended, the draw in Berlin was waiting. And inside that Berlin draw was the world number 2. Here is where the climb steepened. Berlin Open first round, Eala drew Donna Vekic, the just-crowned Queen's Club champion, fresh off her own grass title, and beat her in straight sets, per WTA Tennis. Round of 16, she drew Elena Rybakina, the reigning Australian Open champion and then world number 2. Eala won 7-5, 6-4. Just Women's Sports and the WTA's own video coverage carried it as the career-defining win, and that's the right frame. This was the result that converted potential into proof. Quarterfinal, she beat Elena Svitolina 6-3, 6-4 per Olympics.com. 3 matches, 3 top-tier opponents, 3 wins. The semifinal around the 21st of June is where the run ended. But we'll come back to that because the loss matters in its own way. Take a breath here because what's been described is 6 weeks of one player's life, and it's easy to skim past it as a list of names. So let's slow down. A 21-year-old from a country with no professional tennis tradition won her first grass title, then beat the reigning Australian Open champion, then beat a former Wimbledon semifinalist in Svitolina, then partnered a 5-time Wimbledon champion in doubles, all inside a single month. That is not a hot streak. That is a player rewriting what's possible for a passport in real time, on the surface she's least experienced on. And while she was sharing a court with one Williams sister in Bad Homburg, another was waiting in the Wimbledon bracket. Serena Williams plays Maya Joint on center court the same Tuesday. Eala plays Zarazua on court 12. If both win their first-round matches, and that if is doing real work here because nothing is confirmed until it's played, Eala and Serena meet in the second round. Asked about it by the Los Angeles Times, Eala answered with the kind of line that tells you who she is at 21. I'd love a matchup with her, but then I'd also love to get to the second round. It's deflection, but it's mature deflection. The bracket has handed her a story written for cinema, and she's keeping her eyes on the Mexican veteran in front of her first, which is the only correct answer. But before any of that, before the potential second round, before center court speculation, there's the pattern that has followed her everywhere, and Tuesday is just its newest chapter. The Los Angeles Times, in its feature last week, documented the diaspora phenomenon match by match. Nurses from Birmingham showing up at her tournament there, engineers from Berlin filling sections of the Berlin Open, students from Melbourne, families from Toronto. At the 2026 Australian Open, Filipino fans formed lines for Court 6 that the venue couldn't fit. Eala called Australia kind of a bang, in her own words. Tagalog chants now appear at her matches the way Portuguese chants appear at João Fonseca's, and that comparison, the Brazilian model of soccer-style fan culture spilling into tennis, is the cleanest parallel anyone in the sport has for what's happening around Eala. So when Filipino flags appear in the stands at Court 12 on Tuesday, they are not a surprise. They are the latest stop on a tour that has had the same soundtrack from Melbourne to Berlin to Birmingham. The flag isn't new, the court is. Which brings us to the voice that named it. Mary Jo Fernandez, a former world number 4, 2-time Grand Slam doubles champion, ESPN commentator, was asked about Eala for the same Los Angeles Times piece. Her answer on the record the 29th of June, it's next level. She brings a whole new demographic and crowd to watch our sport. Read that twice. A former top 5 player and a network analyst with no incentive to overstate is not describing a prospect. She is describing a shift in the audience of professional tennis. A whole new demographic is not language anyone uses casually. Backing her up on the same record is Venus Williams, who shared that Bad Homburg doubles court 10 days ago and called Eala very competitive. And working behind all of it is Joan Bosch, Eala's coach since 2023, who told the Times he tries to keep his player focused on the tennis itself, one goal, an achievable goal, and described her as having a good mindset on how to achieve things. 3 voices, 3 tiers. of authority, all current within the same news cycle, all saying versions of the same thing. This player is real, and what's around her is unusual. Now scale it out. The Philippines is the 13th largest country in the world by population. Until Eala, it had produced exactly one professional tennis player who reached the world's top 300, and that was a quarter century ago. The closest comparables, cited by the same Los Angeles Times reporting, are Lina of China and Sania Mirza of India, pioneers from tennis-light nations with enormous populations, players who didn't inherit an audience but built one. That is the lane Eala has stepped into, not the lane of an heir, the lane of a founder. Basketball and boxing dominate Philippine sport. Tennis has never had a domestic professional infrastructure to speak of. So when Mary Jo Fernandez says Eala is bringing a whole new demographic to the sport, she means it almost literally. There was no demographic before. There was a country, and there were a few people in that country who loved tennis. And now there is a player at SW19 who has made the two into one thing. The WTA's commercial side notices this. The broadcasters notice this. And the next Filipino kid who picks up a racket, whether in Manila or Cebu or Cerritos or Dubai, will not be picking it up into a sport that has no map for someone who looks like them. The map exists now. Eala drew it on grass in June. The honest counterweight is this. Berlin ended in a semifinal loss around the 21st of June per Olympics.com. The dream run had a ceiling. She has also lost twice this season to Iva Jovic, the rising American, who described Eala to the Los Angeles Times as someone who takes the ball super early and called her a dangerous player and great person too. Generous from an opponent who has her number this year. So the picture isn't seamless. Grass court mastery at this level is not yet automatic for her. She's a few weeks into having this surface in her toolkit. Tuesday could go any number of ways, and the answer she's already given in advance is that pressure only holds the power you give it. That isn't a guarantee, it's a posture. And it's the posture she's chosen to walk onto court 12 wearing. So here's where we land. 254 spots, one generation. That gap is closed not by Tuesday's scoreboard, but by the seeding line that was drawn before the first ball was struck. What Mary Jo Fernandez called next level didn't arrive at Wimbledon. It arrived at Wimbledon's door because of Berlin, Birmingham, Melbourne, and every court in between. And maybe that's why Alex Eala is the one who gets to walk out under a weight that, for a generation before her, had no one to land on at all. There's a small detail in the Los Angeles Times feature that stayed with me. Eala said she was swimming off Boracay in the Philippines when Filipino fans recognized her in the water. Her line was, honestly, no place is unexpected anymore. A beach in the Philippines, a grass court in southwest London, the distance between those two places used to be the whole problem. On Tuesday afternoon, it stops being one. Whatever happens against Zarazua, whatever happens if Serena is waiting in the second round, Alex Eala has already done the thing no Filipino had done. She belongs in the room she just walked into. If you want to follow her bracket through the rest of Wimbledon with us, the second round, whoever it brings, and every match after, subscribe, and we'll see you on Court 12.